Today is a wonderful, wonderful day. So it is an amazing day to be able to, wake up today knowing that something is going to be happening because somebody said on the 15th that they are going to have a speech. And that's just, it just kind of like floored me today. I'm like, yes, today's the 15th. So let's see what happens today. But I would like to thank you, family, for being here and for showing your support and for, doing what you do because everything that you do has been nothing but changing lives and showing people the way that family needs to be. And it's all about the connection. It's all about the love. And that is how we are going to breaking free from all these old programs. And today we are having a live with Zachary Fisher, which is an amazing patriot that has been following this movement for a very long time. And he is just, we talked to him the other day and he went through some ayahuasca experiences and it's just amazing with the knowledge and everything that has happened after that. And it's just awesome to have you with us today, Zachary.
Yes,
That's great to hear.
it is great to have you. But before we get started, how about if I set the mood with some light language?
Absolutely.
Are we ready?
Mm-hmm.
Shanaya no toriania siakoya niasi. Shiloro no yania tiaya niaso. Hurotia siakia nia torianias. Monoriani hayania siokaya nia. Chitoriania niaso. Yanaya norono. Yohoria shai. Hayato yaniakia niasiato. Kayanoria niasi. Chanaya niasa yonotoria nia. Oh, Loria Naya Niasioko. Shanana Toria Nyaya ya. Kiayo Noya Yaya Nyasia. Niasoro Noriania. We could keep going with that, but we're going to keep it short because we've got an amazing show. So when you're ready, come back to us and take a deep breath.
So,
Hello.
Zachary, family, Zachary.
How you guys doing?
Oh, we're doing great.
Really great.
Thank you for that. That was beautiful.
You're very welcome.
So, I guess what is it that we're talking about? What would you guys like to start talking about? I can start with my story. My story. I don't know if we have enough time for my story. Probably take four of these shows.
I think that would take about
Yeah,
maybe 8 hours worth to get through
probably.
every single detail.
Yeah, I would love to find somebody who would write the story for me, but I'm not a huge writer. However, I do my messages when I'm on Facebook are I don't refer to things as channeled, but I think that I tap into the collective consciousness, and oftentimes I get a response that it seems like I'm in people's minds, right? And in actuality, it's that we are a collective. We all have one mind, and we are all becoming connected once again, right? We're all disconnected. Um, you know, we have what they call junk DNA within us. Is what they would love to tell us it is. It's junk, right? It doesn't matter, which is not true. What had happened is that it was turned off on us, and a lot of it is what I would like to consider like the Akashic records. It's our memories, it's our gifts, it's our abilities, it's our it's who we are, an essence of who we are. And when we came here, we were it was shut off, and I don't know if it was because we chose to have it shut off for this life, for this experience, uh, um, or if we um, if there was an affair about that turned it off us to sleep, right? Um, and a lot of people hear this word ascension and the possible solar flash that might occur, and I think that there were two pathways that this all could have gone, and one was that there was a solar flash that was going to come, and spontaneously we would all wake up and realize that we are different than what we think we are, right? I believe that, and when you read the 17 drops, they said that there was two ways that this could have gone, and one would have been something that would have caused chaos in the world. And it would have been abrupt, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we would have ended up in a place that would more than likely would have been destroyed, and many of us would not have survived, right? So I think there was a second option that was done, and that was a slower, more drawn out awakening. That they are turning up the volume on the central sun that many of us are becoming aware of, right? And what that means is that there is light activations that are happening as the planet Planit, because this was a place that we chose to come to learn lessons, right? We came here to experience the hardships and the loss of love and loss of people and loss of life and things like that. And through all of it, we're um, learning about life. And so what's happening is they are slowly cranking up the light that's hitting us. Our DNA is slowly becoming active again, right? And as that's happening, each of us have a key to the puzzle, right? And you see people that have different gifts and people that have different knowledge. And sometimes you look at people and you go, how do they know this, right? How could this guy possibly know about the galactics, right? And it's it's a memory that is being released within themselves as we keep ascending higher and we continue to eat better and make better decisions. And the ultimate goal of all of this is that we eventually will become our highest selves, right? And we are losing all of our darkness, as I'd like to say. I was a sinner. I partied harder than anybody I know. I womanized more than I've met. I was selfish. I was power hungry. And I guess put me as an example. People, I don't know,
Internet's horrible.
had a storied past that will make you that you forever take that with you, right? And I used to think that. I always thought to myself, there's no way that I can change. Nobody will ever appreciate me. Nobody will ever forgive me for the things I've done or look. That's the uh, healthy way. Um, so, for many, many years, I was in failed relationship after failed relationship after failed relationship. Many people don't know this. I was married 4 times. I'm in my fourth marriage now. And it was a combination of a lot of things. My parents uh, displayed and modeled an awful relationship. Much of the relationship, they slept in different rooms. They uh, never saw them say, I love you. So, for many of my high school years, they slept in different bedrooms. And my brother and I looked at each other and we said, we know when I was the youngest and I knew when I graduated that would get divorced. Literally, my dad moved out and I was left with my mom who was, uh, looking back was unhealthy, right? She had a lot of child trauma from, she was an orphan and, I'm sure that there was a lot of either sexual or abuse trauma that was there. And she transferred that to my brother and I in many ways through abuse and lack of love. So when my parents got divorced, it was literally became my mission to prove that love would work. And in my heart, I was like, I know love can work and I'm going to prove it. And shortly thereafter, when I was about 22 or 23, I found a girl and got married. And she was in the U.S. Army. She went overseas and she stopped responding to phone calls, and the marriage basically ended. She claimed that she had an affair with a woman, and so I was taken off this perch of, oh, love's gonna work, and once again, I got out of that relationship, and I was like, I'm gonna show that love works, show love works. But the problem is that I was so broken inside that did not matter who I was with, I was gonna push them away, right?
Yeah.
It was my heart was huge, but I didn't know how to get it, right? And didn't know how to deserve it and didn't know how to make it happen, right? Nobody ever modeled it. So relationship after relationship, I was failing. Um, so I ended up married 2 more times after that. Well, I married my girl's mom. I had 2 children with her, and during that time, I was highly successful in the eyes of a 3D world. I owned a commercial window company with my dad and my brother, and I was making upwards of $2 million a year. And during that time, I had married somebody that, we ended up, she ended up pregnant shortly after we started dating. And I did what I thought was right, and I married her even though my heart was not really into it. Um, so I ended up getting married and became successful in the eyes of this world. And we vacationed 5 times a year. I spent money like you couldn't believe, and along the way, I developed a coke habit that should have killed the average person. I spent well over $1 million on my habit over the course of probably 4 years. Um, and this is actually when my awakening probably began, right? I ended up in rehab, was there for 2 weeks, and through that 2 week period, my second daughter had been born shortly before that, and I was there for Father's Day, and they both showed up for Father's Day about 10 days into my rehab stint. And I looked at my children and I said, this is not right. I can't be this father anymore. I'm, an awful person, and I'm sitting here and looking at these two little beautiful girls, and I'm failing them. And it was like an instantaneous click in my mind. I said, I'll never touch it again. I'm going to be the father that they deserve, and I'm going to go home and figure this out. Little did I know that, a spiritual awakening is not necessarily an easy thing, right? So once my mind got clear, I started to understand things, and I looked around and I realized that, the majority of the people around me were not there because of love or or anything other than the fact that of what I had to offer them, and that was either, money, drugs,
Status.
status, right? And unfortunately, the my wife was the first person I realized this of, and I was seeing Amazon packages. Actually, back then, probably was, you know, or whatever, packages on our front porch, 10 at a time. And I was like, this is what's going on here. Is this love, or is this, something less than, right? And, we were arguing a lot, and she was unwilling to stop drinking. Would state to me that you're the one with the problem, not me. So why do I need to change? And that was a feeling that literally, made me feel the most alone that I had ever felt in my life. And I realized how alone I was. Um, and every friend that I had weren't calling me anymore because they weren't friends. They were, fellow addicts that, you know, all ran dry. They were there to be friends. So one day I decided I've had enough, and I pulled to the end of the driveway, and this is before I was even spiritual. Like, I didn't believe in a God. I didn't believe in anything. And I said, I need a sign. And a song came on, and it basically said, go. Go, and I didn't stop. I left and I said, I'm done. I had a 10,000 square foot home that we had just built 2 years previously. I walked away from it. At my job, I realized that the money made me miserable. It made me somebody that I wasn't. I was being used, and I was using people, right? And it's that energy behind money is a nasty thing that you don't realize. The more that you have of it, the worse you feel, right? A lot of people think, okay, well, great. If I had $2 million, I would be happy. I'd buy this, I'd buy that. But with all of that comes the darkness, right? So I ended up leaving. I ended up actually walking away from my business. And this is when my and understanding of money took a long, hard path. I eventually remarried another woman, and she was a literal con artist, somebody that she had married many, many times before, presented herself as somebody that was an amazing human being. And I fell in love with her. My kids fell in love with her. And we got married and went on our honeymoon. And when we were on our honeymoon, it was like something flipped. Like, it was an unbelievable. And I relate her to the Jezebel energy that's out there that is sent to destroy, right? She was sent to take every dollar that I had, every ounce of self-respect, every relationship that I had with my kids and my father, my brother, and she ruined me, quote unquote. But in hindsight, looking back, I realized that she did me the biggest favor that anybody had ever done, and she took my ego. She took me from being up here, acting like I was above everybody, and she put me on a chair and kicked the chair out from underneath of me and ruined me, right? And took me to the lowest place I'd ever been in my life, where I lived in a hotel for 7 months. And then I did some work for somebody in exchange for an RV, and I ended up living in an RV for months and was as close to as homeless as I could imagine, right? Um, and I was at rock bottom. But at this rock bottom, and this is what I like to equate as my darkest point of my life, where I was able to either decide to give up or grow up, right? And during this time, I ended up finally renting a house, and this house was about the most awful, god awful place I'd ever lived in. And I spent a winter in it, and it had no heat because I couldn't afford to put oil in the heater. And for some reason or other, man, I kept pushing on and trying to find love, and I ended up joining a dating website and came across a woman. And you know, my first message was to her. She reminded me after was, they said you were looking for me. And to this day, I'm like, how did I know who they were? Right? Like, who was they? Right? And it was like my highest self must have been speaking to me, right? When I saw her picture, I was like, they must be uh, my highest self, or my guides were pushing me to reach out to her. So she, would come over and she'd sit in this nasty house with me, and she didn't care about what I had. She didn't care about uh, anything except for the fact of who I was, right? She loved me for my lowest self, right? And lived or spent the time with me during my lowest times, and saw something better for me, right? So over the next, and this is my now wife Sue, but so over the next couple years, we did not have the greatest relationship because I was still suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, I would call it, from my marriage to this you know evil woman. And she had been through a recent divorce and was struggling with that, and we had kids that were you know wanting attention and breaking us up. And so we broke up 2 times over the course of this time. And the last time we were together, I had moved in, and I that's when the 17 movement started, right? And I was on my phone and was going down every rabbit hole that there was, just digging. I was up 23 hours a day and was sleeping maybe an hour a day. And from her perspective, I was best case scenario crazy. Worst case scenario, I was talking to other women online or whatever it is that she would have thought, and I totally understand it, right? But she didn't understand what I was going through. She's a simple woman. She owned a large daycare that we own that's attached to our home, and at the end of that part of our relationship at that time, she looked at me and she said, there's other people out there that understand you better than I do. I need to let you go. Said, you need to go be with people that are like you, right? And I kept going, this isn't right. This is not right. We're not supposed to be breaking up. I know we're not supposed to be breaking up. And she says, I don't know what to tell you, but you need to go do something. You need to go do something bigger and better than what I have to offer. I'm just simple Suey. So I ended up moving from, you there? Or are you on mute?
Yeah.
We're here.
So I ended up moving to Florida, uh, basically running because I thought that she was my person, right? And I ran and I thought, screw this. My kids were still in Maryland at the time I moved down. Shortly after I got down to, well, this was actually before that, I came down to Florida to look at a job. And when I was down there, rented a condo on the beach in Sarasota. And when I was sitting in Sarasota, was in the apartment or the condo, and I heard a voice speaking as loud as day. Uh, and it was a woman's voice, and it sounded like a loudspeaker or like a PA announcement, I would say, like at school. And I was looking around, and I was like, "There's no possible way this is actually happening right now." But there was a woman that spoke out loud to me, and she said, "Congratulations, you have passed and been accepted to the Galactic Federation of Worlds."
That's
And
incredible.
I thought to myself, "There's no possible way. Like, what does that even mean?" I didn't like Star Wars. I didn't like Star Trek. I didn't like any of it. Right? None of it made sense. And I called, uh, you know, many people, and eventually I think I got to Jason Q, and this was probably 5 years ago. And Jason says, "You know who that is, right?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "That's the Alliance." And I said, "Who's the Alliance?" And he goes, "That's who's helping the how do I refer to him? I'm not allowed to on Facebook,
Mr.
right?
T?
To T?
Mr. T?
Mr. T.
Yeah, Mr. T.
Papa T?
And that's when it all clicked. Yeah, and that's when it all clicked into place for me. And I was like, "Wow, you got to be kidding me, right?" And still in the back of my mind, I'm like, "I'm making this up. Is this real? Like, what's going on here?" So the next night, I go out to dinner and I'm eating, and a waiter walks over, and he overheard a conversation, and he starts to interject, and says to me, he goes, "Well, I'm a star seed. My wife's a star seed, and we have a crystalline child." And uh, and I thought to myself, "What does that even mean, right? And why are you telling me this?" And he goes, "Well, my name's Jason Light." And he goes, "My middle name's Ray, so his name was Jason Ray Light." And I'm like, looking back at him, like, "Ray of Light? Like, this can't be made up, right?" And he had overheard me talking about uh, wanting to do ayahuasca, and I've had a lot of experience doing magic mushrooms. I've probably done them a couple hundred times over my life, and in those experiences, I've never felt closer to God in my life. They were the most spiritual,
Mm-hmm.
religious, quote unquote, religious experiences I've ever had. Um, so I told him about that, and I said, my goal, had developed a humanitarian plan. And my humanitarian plan was to utilize plant medicines to help heal the world, to help people break the programming that we've all been placed under. And he was like, "Wow, that's amazing." He goes, "I have some friends that administer ayahuasca." And I was like, "Oh, really? Wow, that's amazing." And so he was like, "I'll get you in touch with them." And time passed. COVID came, and we were in full lockdown. And I finally reached out to them, and they were like, well, we're not doing it because of COVID, and the energy of COVID has really messed things up, and we haven't done any ceremonies for a while." So I eventually talked them into doing it, and they ended up inviting us up to their house, and we showed up on a Friday afternoon. And immediately when I got there, I slammed my thumb in my car door as I was getting my bag out. And I don't know why or how I did it, but, looking back at it, I think it was with purpose.
I can most definitely see it with purpose.
yeah, and it was done because if I had done ayahuasca and had the experience that I had the second night on the first night, I wouldn't have done the second night, right? So I guess what I could do is get into what my experience was. The first night, about an hour after getting there, we all sat down for service, and these two beautiful people, it's a boyfriend and girlfriend, and they are my family now. They sat down, they taught us how to breathe and meditate, and taught us the importance of breath. I mean, and I had no idea what breath meant at the time. And this is one of the most important things I've learned from this experience is that our breath, when we're in times of that we're scared or times of pain or anguish, we stop breathing. Um, so if we learn how to control our breath in these times and we breathe it with a long in and a long out, we can actually reduce the struggle, right? And can can overcome the hardest times of our lives, right? It's much like when a woman is delivering a baby, you do your breaths in and out, and it helps alleviate the pain. So Anthony, who who actually he actually brews the ayahuasca himself. It's a vine. It's two plants. It's a vine and leaves from another plant, and one is DMT and one is an MAOI inhibitor. So what it does is the DMT, when it comes naturally, we can't process it through our body. So if you were just to take one of the plants, it would just go right through you, and you wouldn't experience it. Now, when you brew it, and it's like a 30-hour process that he does, you boil it down, add more water, boil it down, add more water. When you combine them two, it actually, one of the MAOI inhibitor, I guess, allows uh, us to absorb the DMT and our body will utilize it. And DMT is what is created when we die, and it's also created when we dream, right? And it's created in your pineal gland. So he gives it to me, gives everybody the first dose, and I drink it, and nothing happens. I'm sitting there for 45 minutes, and I'm like, maybe I'm just too far along for this, right? Like maybe I've done mushrooms so many times that this just isn't going to do anything for me, right? And so then he gives me another dose, and I drink that, and nothing happens. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess this stuff's weak or something, or I'm just, you know, my tolerance is too high, right? He gives me another dose, and I'm sitting there, and it's so bitter, and it's so bad, and it's awful, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, I couldn't possibly consume any more of this. It's not because I was, losing my mind or anything. It was just the taste of it was so bad. So about 4 hours had passed at this point, and they're like, all right, well, they're wrapping up the ceremony. Everybody else had gone through their process and seemed to have had experiences, and I hadn't. And he's like, all right, it's time to, everybody needs to get ready for bed. And I all of a sudden start feeling like, whoa, what's going on here? But meanwhile, my thumb is throbbing so hard the whole time that I wasn't able to actually release, right? And I think that's what the slamming of my thumb did, was that I was constantly keeping myself tied to this
3D.
this matrix, right? And the pain was what kept me here. And pain is is my lesson here, right? So I am going into the bedroom, and I'm laying down, and all of a sudden I hear a voice in it, and it's what people that have done it claim is Mother Ayahuasca, right? It's a spirit. I don't know if it's Mother Gaia, Mother Ayahuasca, or what it is, but some people have seen her and say that She looks like a reptile, um, but it's a loving, amazing, kind spirit. But it's she teaches you lessons that are difficult, right? The beauty about ayahuasca is ayahuasca, when we have pain and trauma, what we end up doing is our minds, uh, after it happens, will block it, right? So we shut that part of our brain off and we go, okay, that memory is too much to handle, turn it off. So, what she does, she taps into that portion of you that you more than likely aren't even conscious of, and makes you look at it, right? And that's what you hear a lot of people say, we have to go into the dark to get to the light, right? So this plant medicine basically takes you into what I would call the dark, like the fourth dimension, I'd say, where some of the dark spirits are, right?
Yeah.
And when we think of spirits, a lot of it is our subconscious, right? We're getting into places in our minds that we don't understand. And so she comes out and she goes, would you like to see the Akashic records? And I'm like, sure, absolutely. Love to see the Akashic records. So for the next hour or so, I would think to myself a question, and literally from the right of my vision to the left, it was like doing a Google search, and it would slide out in front of my view, and the answer would be there, and I'd be like, wow, this is crazy. Whoa. And then I would think something else, and it would slide into my view, and I was like, this is absolutely amazing. So for like an hour, it kept going and going and going, and at the end of it, I'm like, all right, I'm getting tired. And all of a sudden, in red neon writing, and I see, you can do it. You can do it. You can do it. You got this, right? And there's a voice of like lots of voices like screaming like, you've got this. And it was like the biggest um feeling of support that I've ever had in my life, right? And I'm like, I don't even know what I got, but this is great. I've got it, right? And in hindsight, it was talking about my next night. So the next day we get up and we sit around. They continue to teach us about meditation and breathing, and we talked about what happened the night before, and then it comes to sitting down for the second night. And Anthony says, all right, let's set our intentions for the night. And I said, all right, well, my intention is I want Mother Ayahuasca to kick my ass. And he looked at me and shook his head. He goes, be careful what you wish for. And I said, well, I don't plan on coming back here to do this too many times, right? I'm ready to heal. And he said, I don't know. And then I was like, all right, whatever. And so that night he gives me one dose, and I drink this dose, and I swear, and I go to myself, all right, I'm going to meditate going into this. And I close my eyes as I'm sitting there, and I lay back on my mat, and before my head lays back on that mat, I'm gone. And when I'm gone, when I say I'm gone, I wasn't here. It was no longer in what you call Earth, right? I was in a place that was the most beautiful, bright. The colors are the brightest things I've ever seen: greens, yellows, reds, and there was like these gears that were turning, and it was a what I would like to call, or what lots of people would like to call, the Garden of Eden. And I'm looking around, and I realize it looks like I'm looking through a sliding glass door, which I guess would be the veil. It's like the veil had lifted up, and I saw, looking back on it now, what I would think are people that were passing over from this realm into the next. And they were sitting, but they were sitting out like on a grassy, park-like area. There was whimsical music that was playing, and they looked like they were being consoled, almost like they were being introduced to, basically, you are here now and you're no longer there. And it was like a support team that was helping these people transition from one realm to the next. Um, and I immediately started to panic. And I was like, I'm not supposed to be here. What am I doing here? This isn't, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. Why am I here, right? And I go, nope, nope, nope. I know where I am. I know where I am, and I know this trick. I'm not doing this. I'm not ready to be here, right? So I immediately forced myself up off the mat, and the next thing I know, I look around, and everybody else was still sitting on their mat and hadn't even started. And I was like, what the hell just happened? And so I'm sitting there, and I'm like, nope, I'm not closing my eyes again. I'm not closing my eyes again. And I laid back on the mat and I keep my eyes like wide open as I could so that I didn't go back in because it scared the hell out of me. And I knew that I wasn't supposed to be there, right? And I heard Mother Ayahuasca. She came out again. She goes, do you want to see the Akashic records? And I was like, yeah, I would love to do that again. That was a lot more fun than that was. And she goes, no, do you want to see them all? And I said, yeah, I'd love to see them all. And the next thing I know, it was like a rush of every memory, every feeling, every thought of the past, present, future happening all at once. And it was like this beautiful feeling, and it was like flowing into me, like all the knowledge that I'd forgotten was coming back, right? And then it started to pick up speed and pick up speed and pick up speed. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, whoa, 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 whoa. This is too much, too much, too much, too much, too much. And I literally saw my brain in front of me like this. And it turned like this and it started to spark.
Whoa.
And I was like, I've lost my mind. And I was like, I've lost my mind. I'm not coming back from this, right? It was too much, too much. And I sat back up and I said, this is too much, right? And I was like, I wish this would stop. Like, I wish this is just too much. I wish I could stop. And I'm sitting there and I'm like looking around at everybody else. And I was like, this is what they try to do. They get in your head and then they start manipulating you. And I see them talking to like other people in the room. And I'm like starting to get real paranoid. And I'm like, nah, this is what they do. Why did I do this? I've done this before. It's all familiar, right? And I looked over to the right, and I think I told you guys this. I saw Shiva was leaning up against the wall in like a long flowing gown, and the gown was like blowing in the breeze. And he looked over at me, and I'm laying there on the mat, and I look over to the right, and I look and I go, "Hey, what's up, man?" Like I knew him. And then I thought to myself, how did I even know who that was? And then I started to giggle to myself, and I turned back over, and I thought to myself, how did I even know who that was? And, the whole time I'm looking around the room, and there's these little dark critters that were like creeping all over the place. It was like literally being in the darkness, right? And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, I'm like in hell or something, right? And so I take my blanket that I had with me and I put it over this blanket, and I'm like just sort of hiding from everything. And next thing I know, I start to chant like an American Indian. I'm like, hey, hey, and all these people around me are having their experiences and are having their hard times. And for some reason or another, this chant that was coming from me felt like it was holding space for the room. There was another guy there, and he started to repeat the same chant as me, and it was soothing to everybody, right? And I'm sitting under this blanket, and it starts to feel like a teepee, and the next thing I know, it's like I was an ancient Indian warrior spirit, right? And I all of a sudden felt powerful, and I was like, holy shit, I am fucking badass. Like nobody could take this from me, right? I'm not this weak little person that I used to be, right? And and it was like I was being taught how strong I was, right? And I don't know if that was a past incarnation of me or what it was, right? But it was familiar and strong, and then this feeling inside of me became huge, right? And unstoppable. So I laid back on my mat and I had the blanket on and I became a little bit calmer. And the next thing I realized is that this was me as a child, right? I was used to be able to get to the Akashic records when I was 5 years old and had no clue what it was. And I would get there and it would scare me to death, right? And I would lay there and pull my blanket up over my head and keep my eyes wide open like I was with ayahuasca in fear for hours and hours and hours at night. And I saw this young boy, and it was me, and I was like, I feel so bad for you. And it was like I was able to meet my youngest self, and was able to give myself a hug and say, I'm sorry, I wish somebody had helped you. And it was like I healed everything that had happened to me as a child, right? In that moment, and it was impactful. It was loving. It was kind, and all the stress and Mother Ayahuasca said to me during the course of all this, like I had always had questions. Did something happen to me as a child? Did something happen to me as a child? And she said to me, "Don't worry about what happened. It doesn't matter." And that was when I was able to just release it, right? And I realized, what is it gonna do if I do know? What if it's something that's so horrible that that it I can't live with it, right? And it made sense. It just didn't matter, right? From this point forward, I was reborn, right? When my mind twisted, it was like my brain reset, and you know, the addictions and all of it, all of the programming in me disappeared. I don't know how to explain it, and it sounds kind of hokey, I guess, but it literally healed me from that point forward, right? And so coming out of that experience, the thing about ayahuasca is it's not just that ceremony that you sit in. It works with you for weeks and months after, right? So we leave, and I was with another woman at the time, and I lived in Southwest Florida, and we go back home, and I one Saturday morning
Before we
turned
go,
myself.
before we
What's
go
that?
on with that,
Yeah.
for the family that wants to try these ayahuasca experiences, what do you think that they would expect, and what do you think that they should do to get ready for that type of ayahuasca experience?
For ayahuasca, it's imperative, first off, that you get off of any antidepressants or things like that because it can cause a bad reaction. Secondly, you have to change your diet to a very, 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 very clean diet, right? Um, and the reason for that is that the plant medicine works through you, and the energy. Like after I did ayahuasca, I was tuned into energies like I've never known. Like it was like a memory of. I remembered how to tap into it, right? Like when I look at people, I can see their energy. But they warned me when I left, you don't want to eat processed meats. You don't want to rush back into eating, heavy foods. The first place I went was Firehouse Subs. Bad idea, man. And it was like, but at the same time, it was such a bad, like, and this is the way it is with all experiences, is that we, from your hardships is when we learn, right? So when I went and ate this sub, all of a sudden I had anxiety like you couldn't believe. And it was literally the energy from the meat, right? It with processed meats is they're not humanely slaughtered.
I have felt that before.
Yeah, and the meat is just ground up and whatever, right? So I got the worst anxiety ever. And I was like, wow, they were right. I shouldn't have eaten that, right? So since then, I now understand how to read energy, feel energy. I can feel when the energies are turned up in the solar flares. I can feel when the solar flares are hitting without even looking at the Schumann. I know a lot of people look at the Schumann, but I feel it within me, right? It's a nervousness. It's an elevation, right? And it's like you're being pushed to a point of breaking, and that's what's happening when they turn up the light. I liken it to like the volume on a radio. They turn it up to the point where we feel like we're going to break, and then they kick it back down a little bit so we can acclimate to that new level, right? So there's a lot of people that will reach out to me and they're like, "Oh my God, I'm losing it," right? And they get to a point, and I've been there, where you feel like you're, discovering so much about yourself that you feel like you're going nuts, right? And you panic, and uh, and then you can ask your guides to let off a little bit, and they will, and then you can integrate all the new upgrades, and then the next go around they'll take you a little higher. And
How does how does that experience compare to doing Hape? A Hape
I've never done.
shaman?
I've never. They offered me Hape when I was there, and after that experience, I was like, I don't need any more. I don't need to feel anything else right now. But Hape, I believe it's to ground you. From what I understand, it's tobacco or it's
It has
tobacco or
tobacco products in there, just a little bit of like the natural, just the plant itself, along with herbs and whatever else
right.
that they put.
So I think what it does, it allows you to ground yourself at times, right? But um, I use meditation personally, like to and I can't stress this enough. Meditation is more important than anything than anybody can do. Is when you can manage your depression, you can manage your energies, your anxiety. A lot of the anxiety that we're feeling in this world is from food, uh, uh, that earth, right? We're as our DNA is being activated, we're having to look at our dark experiences, right? And we might not realize that that's what's really happening, but where we're going, we're not allowed to have the darkness attached to us, right? So we have to address it. And a lot of people are clinging to this matrix right now, right? They don't want to let go, and they're the comforts of, and it's going to be a long road for them. They're tied to and the ones that are in doctrine, one.
Internet's acting up.
You're really choppy, Zach.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
barely. I mean, it's just so much is being cut out that we're getting like every fifth word.
Yeah. Is it better yet or
Yeah,
no? I
yeah,
don't
it's
know.
better at least for the moment.
Yeah. So
So, Kid and I have done Hape,
yeah,
and
tell me about it. I've never done it.
um, it's definitely grounding. But I have been having massive experiences in my meditations. I was introduced to a beautiful, very big ant, and he asked permission and planted a seed within my heart, and I received that. And then the last two times it's grown, and I was told to
Huh.
put my hands like this on the table, and I could feel
Right.
energetically the seed grew down my arms and through my hands down into the earth, and the trees and the grass and the plants started speaking to me.
Oh wow.
That was really incredible.
Hape, you inhale it, you snort it, right?
Yeah.
Not snort it, you snuff it. So basically, snuffing is where you push the breath from your
Blow.
mouth up into your nose.
Gotcha. So how often do you do this? Just when you meditate, or?
When I feel called to. Lately, it's been daily.
This is the applicator.
Yeah. Yeah, they were doing that after the ceremony, and I was at that point. I was like, it was an information overload, and I was like, no, thank you. I'm good right now. So yeah, well, I mean, I'd be definitely interested in trying something like that. Now, I was just sent from my friend something. It's called. He's made drops from the vine of the ayahuasca plant,
Oh,
and it's called vine only. And there's studies that are being done that talk about how amazing it is for our healing. Right.
where do you
Uh,
get something like that?
from him, he makes it.
Okay, so can you get us connected after this show?
Yeah, absolutely. And we did ours first last night, and I think it's the type of thing you're supposed to do it like 30 days on and then 10 days off, and it's supposed to be, amazing for meditation and also clarity, and also allows, I guess, the pathways in your mind to open, and that's what uh, magic mushrooms do is it allows your brain to remap itself. They're utilizing that for people with PTSD. A lot of soldiers
Mm-hmm.
that come back from war are utilizing it, and it literally, remaps the way that your brain will operate to get around the PTSD, and it's healing them within,
Stabilizes the electrical neurons.
right, and it's healing them, within a use or two. And they're also
Mm-hmm.
using what's the other? Ketamine is also another one that they're using. So that a lot of this stuff is helping us, and it was hidden from us for a long time, and made to look like it was dangerous, right? And in actuality, they were scared we're going to wake up, right?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened to me. Is I woke up, and like I was saying, a week after I had done the ayahuasca, I went home, and I laid in bed on a Saturday morning. I turned myself over to God, and I'd never in my life uh, read the Bible. I've never done anything like that. But I said, God, I am your vessel, and you can use me in any way that you seem fit. I'm gonna free fall into this, and I'm gonna trust the guidance that's being shown to me, and I'm not gonna question where you're sending me, and all I ask for is you to take care of my family.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was with this other woman in Florida, and we decided this was still during lockdown. We were going to go on a road trip to South Dakota, where Mr. T was talking for the 4th of July years ago, and there was a 17 movement camp out that was occurring up there, and we were going to go up there and meet people, and then we were going to continue to travel the U.S. and meet people from the 17 group that I had that I can't say here, and do acts of service and see where God would direct me, right? So we made it out to Oklahoma, and God showed me that I was not supposed to be with her anymore. And I said, you need to drop me off at an airport, and I'm gonna find my own way to the campground. And so we spent the night, and the next morning, or spent the night. We had to drive back to Dallas that night to a friend's house. We were sleeping, and I said, the next morning you drop me off at the airport. Well, on the way home, it was like, signs are everywhere, right? I had a black cat run across in front of the car. I looked over to the left at the same time, and out in the field was a sign that said "Jesus Christ saves." And then I looked over to the right. And, I mean, this sounds crazy. Looked over to the right, and there was two double rainbows. And I said, if this isn't a sign, then I don't know what is. So then I get to drop report. I rent a car and I drive. And I'm like, I was, my goal was to go to Arkansas to see a friend that was going up to the campground. We were going to go up together. And I received a phone call, actually the night before at about 12:30 in the morning. It was my youngest daughter, and she said, "You need to come home." And I hadn't seen her for 6 months because of, like 4 or 5 months because of COVID. And she was still in Maryland. And it was like I was waiting for this phone call or something to hear her say, "Dad, I want you to come home." And because of the relationship that had suffered over the time from my past wife, our relationship had no longer been that close, right? And it was like, second she said come home, I was like, I'm gone, right? So I got in that car. I drove 24 hours straight from Dallas to Port Charlotte, Florida. I got there, I dropped off the rental car, I got an Uber back to the house. I packed my stuff up into my truck and kept driving another 9 hours to Savannah, Georgia before I stopped. Slept a few hours, and I ended up back in Maryland. Drove 2,400 miles in 2 days. Got back here, and it was like I went through a cleansing experience. I don't know how to explain it other than the fact that I was in a hotel for like 7 days, and I was resting because I was so exhausted, and I was taking like 6 to 7, 8 baths a day over and over and over and over. And it was like this cleansing. I don't know how to explain it. Other than the fact that I was cleansing something from me, right? And at this time, I was here to be with the kids. I had very little money in my car, and I was like, I've got enough to be in this hotel and survive for a while, right? I had a few $1,000s, and I said, if I have to, I'll go live in the woods, and whatever, I'll be there for my kids. And so somehow or another, I assumed Sue was still with her ex, or with her boyfriend at the time. And we ended up getting in touch, and she said she had broken up with her boyfriend, and she said, "Can I come see you?" And she said, "I just want you to know that there are no expectations here because I'm not ready to be with anybody." Right? Like she said, this guy had abused me and was awful to me, and separated me from my kids, and made me want basically almost put me out of business and took money from me, and on and on and on and on. And I was like, that's interesting. And so she comes over, and she comes to the door, and I give her a hug, and I'm like, "Hey, Suey." She hated it when I called her Suey because I don't know why she hated it, but there was a kid at the daycare that used to call her Suey all the time, and now it's her nickname. She's Suey. She said when I hugged her, I literally healed her, and she said it felt like two magnets clicked, and um, I was like, there's no way. Like I kept going, I'm up here, right? Like, and she's down here, and she hadn't done anything in regards to going down rabbit holes or anything like that, right? And in my mind, I'm like, she's just playing, right? So a couple months pass, and she literally got it all, right? She started to understand it all, and she didn't question anything I said. And I was like, there's going to be some time where she starts to call me, right? Like crazy, like none of this, and it never happened, right? And I said to her, I said, how is it that you believe in all this stuff now? you've never even looked at it. She goes, well, I believe in you enough that I know that it's true, right? And I was like, this is an amazing experience in and of itself, and I'm still like, I eventually moved in with her again, and we hadn't even talked about getting married, and this is actually a little crazy. I woke up one morning and there was a bird out in the kitchen, in our house in the kitchen, and I'm like, how did a bird get in the house? And so we go out there, and the cat has this bird pinned up against the bay window, and I looked at this bird, and I'm like, man, we gotta get the bird out. And so Sue goes and grabs a towel and covers the bird up and wraps it up, and I'm taking pictures of her, like, and she lets the bird outside, and the house is attached to the daycare center, so she eventually goes to work. And I post a picture on Facebook of this bird, and I go out and I cut the grass, and I'm sitting out there mowing the lawn. We have 2.5 acres on the property, and in the middle of cutting the grass, and I black out into a meditation, is what I would say, a vision, right?
While you're
In this
cutting the
vision, I
grass at
see,
the same time?
yeah,
Huh.
and we had already scheduled the day of being event that we do down in Florida every July. It's a day where like-minded people meet to enjoy each other and celebrate what we're creating, right? So I'd had this day, and it was planned on July 17th. It was 7/17/21, so it was like 7/7/7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7. And God had already showed me that event, right? And all of a sudden, I blacked out in this meditation state, and I saw us getting married on the beach. And I was like, what in the world was that? And I saw everybody that was in attendance. I saw the people that married us. I saw it all, right? And I jumped off the mower, and I'm like, what? She's sitting there. And I said, I don't know what just happened, but I think we're supposed to get married. And she said, is that a proposal? And I said, I don't know. I said, I'm not sure what's going on, right? So I said, we'll talk about it later. And I left the office, and I go back inside, and I check my Facebook page, and somebody said, there's got to be a spiritual sign behind it, behind the picture of the bird. And I looked it up, and I looked up the meaning of having a sparrow in the house. And it stated, and I'm not making this up, it said Aphrodite leaves a sparrow in somebody's home, and soon to follow is good fortune, and a wedding will soon follow. And I was like, what the hell is that? There's no way that just happened, right? Like, it said Aphrodite leaves a sparrow in your house, and that good fortune and a wedding will. So I walked back in, and I said, we're getting married. So we ended up getting married 3 days before the gathering in 2000, or July 14th. We ended up getting married, and what I could say from all of this is I know that there's a lot of people out there that are struggling with their partners, right? Like, some are sleeping still, or some are accusing you of being crazy and things like that. And there's a lot of people that are going through divorces, and there's a lot of changes that are occurring, right? And as far as, quote unquote twin flames, or whatever you might want to call it, until you are healed, you're going to push that other person away, right?
Hold up just a minute
Yeah, go ahead.
before you move on. Is
Yeah.
it still cutting out, you guys? Am I cutting out? What's happening? So
They're
Because
saying it's
I'm
bad.
not hearing any cutting out while he's talking on Facebook, so I'm not sure what's happening on YouTube. Am I cutting out? When you say yeah, still, is it him? Is it us? Is it everyone? What is it? Both. And
Uh,
is this for everybody? Sounds like a record skipping.
Why don't we wrap up and then
yeah, we can wrap.
schedule you another one?
Yeah, I'm all for it. I enjoy this.
Okay.
Yeah, this is really great.
Okay.
And
Quiet for about 1 minute so I can reset this Roadcaster program. Give me 1 minute.
well, we're gonna close up anyway.
I know, but give me a moment because
Oh.
nobody can hear us.
Oh.
Let me see if it works.
Yes.
Things.
We'll mime it.
All right. Let me see. How does that sound now? By the way, Zachary, everyone is loving your story, especially with how transparent that you are.
I love
And
it
how
too.
open
Yeah,
that
man.
you are to be able to share everything like this because there's nope, still cutting. Okay, still, yeah. We're gonna have to cut this out, but it's being recorded, so we could just take it off and put it back on with Restream. I do have to say that a lot of the family members can relate to a lot that you've been through, and
There's a lot more to my story too, man. I'm giving you a brief synopsis, but the one thing I can tell you is, as far as everybody's healing goes, is the first step to it is you got to be honest with yourself, right? You have to really want to let go of all your bullshit in order to heal, right? You can't sit here and say everything's okay when it's not. You have to go, yeah, I'm an asshole, right? And I don't want to be an asshole anymore because, the goal here is that we all become our highest selves, right? We become the best version that we can possibly be. And it's a process, right? It's not going to happen overnight. Maybe there is a solar flash that happens when we all of a sudden become Christ-like, right? I don't know. But until then, we all have to be truthful and honest with ourselves and deal with our darkness, right? And allow it to leave.
it's very true.
I don't know if people are hearing it or not, but there we
Well,
go.
we got the recording, so we'll be able to post it back up there for everybody to hear. But what I did want to say is that because of your story, it's going to give a lot of these family members the opportunity and the courage to also share their story too. Because by sharing
Yeah.
the story also brings a lot of healing to not
Lots
just
of it.
oneself, but to everybody else that's also hearing it. So I just wanted to
Absolutely.
share my gratitude with that.
Yep,
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys. And this is healing, right? Like just me sitting here telling you, I'm exposed now. Nobody can say anything about me, right? That I don't already know.
That's very true.
Yep.
It's
All right,
very
guys.
true.
Well, I love you guys. You guys, thank you for letting me come on.
Oh, thank you.
It was our honor.
It was our honor to be able to have you on live with us.
Beautiful.
Yes, thank you.
And it looks like Kid and I will talk about our schedule, and then we'll get back with
Yeah.
you.
All right. Sounds great.
All right.
Thank you,
Love
guys. Love you too.
You're probably not going to want to hear this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Always go with the choice that scares you the most. because it's the choice that's going to help you grow.
Wow.
I can't do negative today. Positive vibes, positive vibes.
Hey, best friend. Wait. To the person seeing this, I know you're tired. I know you're fed up and so close to breaking. But remember, you have strength within you even when you feel weak. Keep fighting, best friend.